Welcome in, everybody, to this KC Sports Report live stream. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I have the pleasure to be joined by my friend Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com. And tonight we are going to break down and preview the Kansas City Chiefs' first matchup in the 2024 NFL season, and that is the Baltimore Ravens. Tomorrow night for the NFL home opener, the Kansas City Chiefs kick off their 2024 campaign against the Baltimore Ravens, an AFC Championship game rematch. And Josh, this one should be an absolute classic. But my first question for you is, what do you think about the Baltimore Ravens as we go into this week one matchup?
Well, they're a tough team. Obviously, faced them in the AFC Championship game not even a year ago. They still have one of the better defenses in the NFL on paper. And while the wide receiver core still doesn't blow you away for Baltimore, and we have those question marks about Lamar Jackson being able to make those big-time throws in big-time moments, they added Derrick Henry. And that's scary given the rushing attack and how good that was for them even before he got there. Those are two big things to worry about with this team. I mean, this is a team we expect to see later down the line in the playoff picture. So that makes it an important matchup for the Kansas City Chiefs in terms of seeing where they're at, how they stack up against the top of the conference even early on.
You know, and last year the Chiefs lost their home opener against the Detroit Lions. And while that game sucked, as a Chiefs fan, to watch the Chiefs lose, the fact that the Lions are in the NFC really helped the Chiefs out. If the Chiefs would have lost to an AFC team, it would have put them down on the depth chart, in seeding purposes. So for the Chiefs to play the Ravens so early on in the year and in such a, I don't want to say a meaningless game, but week one, you don't know what your team's going to look like 10 weeks later. And so for such a big game to be played so early on in the season, it just puts that much pressure on the Kansas City Chiefs to find a way to get it done. And listen, this is not going to be an easy task by any means because the Baltimore Ravens are coming into this game hungry with revenge on their minds. They saw what the Chiefs did. They celebrated on their home field after they beat them in an AFC Championship game to go to the Super Bowl. They took the Ravens championship. I think the Ravens would have probably gone on to destroy whoever they played in that Super Bowl. They definitely would have beaten San Francisco, I think, if they were to play. So there's a little bit of a personal grudge for the Ravens in this game. But like you said, with the addition of Derrick Henry, that just makes this Ravens team that much better. They lost Patrick Queen, but with the additions that they made offensively with, Derrick Henry, and they didn't lose too much defensively, this is going to be pretty much the same team that they were last year, plus one of the best running backs in football in Derrick Henry. So this is going to be a tough task for the Chiefs, and it's going to be difficult. But I think the Chiefs are going to be well primed to play in this game. They know what it's like to start off slow. They did that last year, and I don't think they make the same mistake twice. But Josh, what do you think is the biggest aspect when it comes to what you're watching for individually in this game that you think is super important for the Chiefs to do correctly in order to win?
Not turn the ball over. Of course, you don't want to give the Ravens more opportunities, and that's something that this offense really struggled with. And then the dropped passes from the wide receivers. I mean, that was the biggest problem, really. I mean, the wide receiver play, the dropping of passes that kills a lot of drives. You look at week one last year against the Detroit Lions. I mean, drop passes are what lost the Chiefs that game and the wide receiver play. And we started that season out thinking, the offense was shaky in that week one game, but they'll be fine. Well, they never really were fine. In fact, they were pretty terrible for the entirety of the year, and then they turned it on the postseason, one of the most incredible in-season turnarounds or postseason turnarounds, I guess you would call it, that we've seen from one particular side of the football, I feel like. But yeah, that was bad, and that's an important thing that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to have to improve on. We think their offense is going to be better, and you said it, Michael, on my channel earlier. We think the offense is going to be better, but we just have to see it. And this is a new group of pass catchers. It's a new look group that we think is a lot more talented. Of course, they'll be without Hollywood Brown, but even without Hollywood Brown, you still have the rookie Xavier Worthy, who you and I both agree. We think he's going to make a big impact with Hollywood being out. You have Rashee Rice, who caught for 900 yards last year. He's back. He should be your wide receiver one. You have Travis Kelce, and more importantly, you have Travis Kelce healthy this time. Last year, he almost had a devastating leg injury that would have caused him to miss the entire year. But luckily, it ended up only being, I believe it was a hyperextension of the leg. But there were some gaffes from inside the Chiefs facility there for a second when it came to Travis Kelce's health. And he really battled that leg injury throughout the entire year, which is another reason the offense really struggled. So really, Michael, what we're looking at is a much improved offensive unit, hopefully not putting so much stress on the defense in this game.
And listen, you went out this offseason and you revamped the wide receiver core. You got rid of Kadarius Toney and you brought in guys like Hollywood Brown and you drafted Xavier Worthy. The expectation on this team is that the offense is going to be better. There is no excuse anymore. They've made a lot of investments in this wide receiver room. For them to be bad, it would not be a good look for the Chiefs. So, yeah, the offense performing is obviously something that we're going to be watching very closely. But I think the biggest key in this game, if the Chiefs want to win, is stopping Derrick Henry. I think that Derrick Henry is going to get a lot of carries in this game. The biggest stat that's worth mentioning is the Baltimore Ravens rushed the ball 6 times in that AFC Championship game after having one of the best rushing offenses in football during the regular season. And I don't know why they deviated from that game plan. I think that was a really dumb coaching decision by Harbaugh, but I think that with Derrick Henry being added to that unit, the Ravens are going to come into Kansas City with the intention to pound it down the Chiefs' throats. And I think they're going to try to run the ball 20 to 25 times and see if Derrick Henry can go for a $150, 200 yards on the ground and just going on long, sustaining offensive drives and just keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. I think that's the best case scenario if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, because while Lamar Jackson's great and all, he's an MVP winner last year, I don't think that
undeserved in my opinion.
It was a weak year. It was a weak year by all the other quarterbacks, and the Ravens happened to be the best team in the AFC, so they gave it to Lamar. Yep. Lamar Jackson is not going to be able to outduel Patrick Mahomes in any game, but specifically week 1 where both teams are going to be figuring stuff out.
Yeah, no, I think, you have to really focus on that matchup. And I mentioned it in our video that we did, but the defensive tackles and, of course, the linebackers at the second level when it comes to stopping Derrick Henry. I'm concerned about the Chiefs' defensive tackles. I'm really concerned about the depth there. I still am baffled as to why they didn't bring in any new blood to that position group. And we have Mike Pennell, who famously helped the run defense in 2019 when Derrick Henry was the big bad wolf. But I don't know if that's going to be the same result in 2024 for either
5
of those
years
guys.
Later.
Yeah. And then, it's Tershawn Morton, it's Derek Nottie, who I think is taking a step back. Then, of course, you have Chris Jones. I'm going to be looking to, if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, maybe move Mike Dana inside quite a bit, maybe move George Karlaftis inside, just because I'm really worried about the depth there, and I'm worried about their ability at the defensive tackle position to stop Derrick Henry. But then, of course, you have Nick Bolton, who I think that, this is a big game for him because he famously stopped Derrick Henry a few years ago as a rookie against the Tennessee Titans. It was that game where the Chiefs got beat so bad, and it was really ugly. But there was one bright spot in that game, and it was Nick Bolton, because he held Derrick Henry, I think, to either 100 yards or less in that game. And he was really good. He made a bunch of plays in the backfield. We know Nick Bolton has shortcomings in coverage, and those will probably show up even in this game. But if there's an area in this game in which you can leave a mark, it's stopping Derrick Henry.
Absolutely. And listen, Derrick Henry is not the Chiefs' only concern in this game. They have Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews, and that rushing attack is always incredible. So the Chiefs' defense is going to have their hands full. And one position group that we were worried about in your show is the Chiefs' second cornerback. We obviously know that Trent McDuffie is going to play at an all-pro level, but the Chiefs have had a lot of problems finding his counterpart on the other side. Steve Spagnuolo has been quoted in press conferences saying that there isn't a number 2 cornerback and that they're going to have to basically do it as a cornerback by committee kind of thing. And does that worry you in a week 1 matchup against, the Baltimore Ravens having one of the best offenses in football? Like, it should worry people.
Yeah, it certainly does, because, and I know we're rehashing a lot of the same stuff from earlier today, but I mean, L'Jarius Sneed punching the ball out from Zay Flowers at the goal line, that was a play that really changed that game in the AFC Championship. If that doesn't happen, the Ravens probably go on to win that game, just the way that the momentum was leaning before that play was made. You don't have L'Jarius Sneed anymore, and Zay Flowers, I think, is going to be very good in his second year in the league. He's very quick. He's very fast. There's not a ton of DBs that match up with him athletically. L'Jarius Sneed was one of those guys that did kind of match up with him athletically. But even Zay Flowers is a lot better when it comes to like short area quickness. That looks like a Trent McDuffie matchup to me. But then, Rashad Bateman was improved last year. He's still part of that room. But then there's also Mark Andrews, who was just coming off a broken leg in that AFC Championship game, but he'll be back at full strength in this one. So the Ravens have some weapons, and the Chiefs secondary on paper, at least right now, there's a lot of younger guys, a lot of talent in that room, just unproven. But as of right now, on paper, the Chiefs secondary looks worse. So, that has to worry you just a little bit in this game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it absolutely does. But I think that my bet is that the Ravens aren't going to throw the ball as much as they're going to run the ball. So while the second cornerback group is an area of concern for, week one, but it's more of a concern later on in the season when you go up against a Joe Burrow or a Justin Herbert that's going to attack that weakness. I really think that the Ravens are going to try to gash the Chiefs on the ground. And so it's going to be very important that guys like, Chris Jones and Derrick Nottie and Mike Pennell find a way to step up and plug those holes and, get at least the first point of contact on Derrick Henry, because he's a pretty tough guy to tackle. So if we want any chance of Drew Tranquill or Nick Bolton bringing down the beast that is Derrick Henry, our defensive line is going to have to do their job. But one thing that I also think that is worth noting is the Ravens offensive line. 3 out of the 5 starters on that offensive line are not on this team anymore. The only 2 guys that are still on this team that went to the AFC Championship game last year was their center, Tyler Linderbaum, and then, Ronnie Stanley, the left tackle, who hasn't really been able to stay healthy over the past couple seasons. So the Chiefs' defensive line might really be able to exploit that offensive line that has a lot of weaknesses and is still trying to figure things out. And so maybe we see a big game from Chris Jones or, George Karlaftis. Maybe Felix steps up in his first game that he's going to get some meaningful snaps in. But I think the Chiefs' defensive line is going to have to get to Lamar Jackson, close that pocket, and make sure that he can't just run around all day. Because if that's what he does, the Chiefs could be in for a rude awakening.
Yeah, it all comes down to Lamar Jackson being able to run and just that Ravens running game. If you can shut that down and force them to throw, then yeah, you got to feel pretty good about the Chiefs' chances, because we just haven't seen Lamar answer those question marks surrounding his ability to make those big-time throws in big-time moments like I mentioned earlier. And so I think the Ravens want to stay away from that, though. They don't want to kind of fall into that trap like they did in the AFC Championship game where they abandoned the run. And that's one of the reasons they signed Derrick Henry, is because now it's going to be kind of impossible for them to abandon the run, because it's like, oh, shoot, we have Derrick Henry back there. Like, what are we doing? But the Chiefs defense, I think there'll be some early kinks to work out, missed tackles, conditioning. And the offense always has the advantage in these early games, as I've said, for a lot of those reasons. And so the Chiefs will have their hands full. That's for sure.
When this could be a game also that we see both teams scoring in the 30s. I mean, week one is a week that, NFL defenses are starting to tackle again. And so I expect, our linebackers to maybe miss some tackles, or our, defensive tackles to not be, as quick as they would be in week 3 or 4. Week one still is a conditioning test for a lot of these guys. So I would not expect, a great defensive showcase in week one. I think this defense is going to have to work out some of the kinks. And so both of these offenses could feast. It could be a game where both teams are in the 30s, high 30s. Realistically, I'm projecting somewhere in the mid 30s for both teams, but expect both offenses to show up and show out in this game. I think that we just hope that it's the Chiefs offense that gets the final laugh over this Ravens team. And listen, they're coming into this game with revenge on their mind. They watched what the Chiefs did to them on their home turf to go to a Super Bowl. But I think it's kind of an overplayed narrative that, the target's on the Chiefs' back. Now everybody's gunning for the Chiefs. The Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls. The target should always be on the Chiefs' back, and it has always been on the Chiefs' back. So I don't think that that's really anything new this year. I think the Chiefs are used to being the team that everybody gives their best for. But listen, it's week one. There's going to be high emotions in this game, and the Ravens are going to try to come out and stick it to the Chiefs. But I really question if their defense can stop Patrick Mahomes with actual wide receivers on this team.
Yeah.
I think if the Chiefs are able to, get going early on and maybe punch the Ravens in the mouth, go up by a score or two, the Ravens aren't going to be able to run the ball, 25 times. They're going to be playing from behind. And if it's one thing that we've learned, it's that the Ravens are not as good of a team if they're coming from behind.
Yeah, that's the goal, right? Is to get up on them early. That's how a lot of these matchups have really gone when the Chiefs have faced the Ravens, at least in the ones that the Chiefs have won. They were able to get up on the Ravens early and kind of force them to get out of their comfort zone. The one matchup that the Chiefs lost against the Ravens was, of course, that one where their defense was so bad, it was impossible for them to really create that cushion because the Ravens were scoring at the same rate as the Chiefs. And hopefully, like you said, we don't see that in this one, and it's more of the Chiefs offense. And, the defense will have the home crowd behind them in this one since it will be played at Arrowhead, unlike the AFC Championship game. So maybe they get a little bit of a boost from that. But, this, in other words, Michael, this is the Ravens Super Bowl. And they're going to be looking to make a statement in this game. And that's one of the reasons why I see the Chiefs maybe slipping up in week one, is because the Ravens just care way more about this game than the Chiefs do.
And see, the Chiefs need to care about this game. I know they're the defending champions and you're dropping the banner on this night. But listen, this game could have seeding implications 3 months down the line. And to lose it in week one because you weren't focused enough, I think that's a really bad look for the Chiefs. And listen, Baltimore is not going to be an easy game. Like, this is going to be tough from start to finish. But if it's the Chiefs that just haven't really – if it's the Chiefs that haven't woken up after this offseason and all through training camp in the preseason, if they're not ready to play in this game, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow for a lot of Chiefs fans, including myself. But I think if the Chiefs go out there and play their best, I don't think there's really anybody else that can beat them. And so I feel pretty confident that, if the Chiefs play the brand of football that we are accustomed to seeing them play, they will be okay and they will win this game. But, it's early on in the season, and if it's one thing that we've learned, the Chiefs struggle at the beginning of the season and maybe drop a game or two that they normally don't drop.
Yeah. Well, and it's a future playoff opponent, we think. So, those matchups for the Chiefs, they're almost kind of like feel-out games where maybe the Ravens come out on top in this one, but the Chiefs are going to learn a lot from this matchup that they're then going to use to beat the Ravens later on, kind of like the Bills and the Bengals.
That's a really good point. And it's honestly something that, the Chiefs have done over the past couple seasons. They might drop a game early on in the season, but guess what? They always get the last laugh. Yep. And, before we continue, Josh, I just want to shout out everybody that's watching this live stream in the chat. Tony Fuentes, Lego My Ego. Appreciate you guys for commenting, being in this chat. I plan on continuing to do live streams all season long. At some point, I'm going to do live reactions to some of these games, and we'll have post-game live streams and hopefully a weekly Q&A where we
will be here
times a week. Yeah, we are here for this season, as they would say in Las Vegas.
Like, Patrick Mahomes would say, yes.
We're here all season long. And so if you guys can like this video and share it so more Chiefs fans can find it, build up this audience back, because we're going to be here all season long. And I think that we could have some really good crowds in here and to talk about this team as they try to do something that no other team has accomplished, and that's three-peat. So, Josh, my final question for you after we've broken this game down, what do you think the final score of this week one matchup is?
Well, it pains me to say, because I know most would like to hear us say that this is going to be a Chiefs week one win, start out the season on the right foot. But I do see the Ravens actually winning this one, coming out with the vengeance. It's going to come down to who has the ball last, most likely. Ravens win 31-30. It's not going to be an alarming loss. It could have seeding implications down the line, but I don't think it'll be anything to be too worried about. I think the Chiefs will be just fine, but this is just a game between two foes in the AFC, two heavy hitters in the AFC, and somebody has to lose.
That's a good point. Somebody has to lose this game. I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs. Listen, I don't hate the Baltimore pick because the Ravens are a really good football team, and you make a good point that they might just be more motivated to win this game than the Chiefs are in week one. But listen, the Chiefs lost this game last year. I think they know what that feels like. And I also think that they're going to come out more prepared than Baltimore. I think that Andy Reid's had all this time to sit back and think about the perfect offensive game plan to utilize some of the new toys that he has in this offense. And so I do expect us to see more from, the wide receivers than we did last year. And I don't think the wide receivers are as much of a net negative as they were in week 1 last year. Kadarius Toney lost us that game. He's no longer here. And so I think that this is going to be a game that goes back and forth, but the Chiefs are going to have the ball towards the end of the game, and Patrick Mahomes is going to go on one of those legacy drives that we've seen him complete time after time after time. So I think the Chiefs win a very close one in a high-scoring week 1 matchup. I have the Chiefs winning 31-28. I think they win on, maybe a last-second field goal, or they kick a field goal with like a minute or two left, and they put the game in Lamar Jackson's hands. And like he's done time after time against the Chiefs, he's not able to deliver. So I have the Chiefs winning. You have the Ravens winning. I think both are very fair picks. We don't know what week 1 is going to bring. It's going to probably be very different than what we see in week, 10 or 11. But I think it's safe to say that, regardless of the outcome, we're excited that Chiefs football is finally back. So, Josh, my final question for you is, where can the people find you?
You can find me here on YouTube, Show Me Football. Should be down in the description already. And then, of course, you can find my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com for more. Follow me on Twitter at ShowMeFB.
As for me, guys, you guys can subscribe to this channel first and foremost. Like this video, share it with other people. We are going to be back here every week doing live streams, previews, game watch parties. I want to make it my mission to build up this following again, build up the live community that we've had in years prior. So like this video, go check out some of the other content that not only I have on this channel, but go check out Josh's content. We've been grinding a lot this offseason. It's only going to continue in the regular season. But until next time, guys, thank you for watching this Kansas City Chiefs live stream with Josh Fan. I'm Michael Darcy. Thanks for watching.